Welcome to English Between the Lines. I'm Liam. Today, we are performing a linguistic autopsy on a truly monumental conversation from the diary of a CEO. Our subject? Dara Khosrowshahi.
I'm Emma. Dara isn't just any executive. He is the CEO of Uber. He was the man brought in to save the company during its most volatile period, transforming it from a business losing billions into a global powerhouse.
The interview is incredibly raw. Dara talks about fleeing the Iranian Revolution as a child, losing everything, and how that trauma built a relentless, anti-fragile work ethic. He dives deep into the Uber grind and why he believes hard work is a learned skill that creates your own luck.
We're going between the lines of his vocabulary, from how he describes operational excellence to his unique direct channels framework for feedback. If you want to lead at the highest level, you need to master the language Dara uses to command it.
Let's start with the word that defines the entire Uber era: friction. Let's dive straight into the vocabulary. These are terms that shift you from a worker mindset to a founder mindset. Number 1, asymmetric risk. Definition: a situation where the potential for gain is vastly higher than the potential for loss. The breakdown: the speaker doesn't say a good deal. He uses asymmetric. It implies a mathematical certainty. Example: quitting my job to start this company was an asymmetric risk. The downside was a few months of debt, but the upside was total freedom. Number 2, cognitive dissonance. Definition: the mental stress of holding two contradictory beliefs. The breakdown: use this to describe the pain of growth. Example: he felt massive cognitive dissonance because he claimed to value health while maintaining a sedentary lifestyle. Number 3, to extrapolate. Definition: to project current trends into the future to predict an outcome. The breakdown: this is forecasting for intellectuals. Example: if we extrapolate these current habits over the next 10 years, the result is either total burnout or total mastery. Number 4, innate. Definition: something you are born with, inherent. The breakdown: used to differentiate between learned skills and core character. Example: the drive to create isn't just a habit, it feels innate to his personality. Number 5, hyper-focus. Definition: an intense, trance-like state of concentration. The breakdown: it's more than working hard, it's a physiological state. Example: in an age of distraction, the ability to maintain hyper-focus is a competitive advantage. Number 6, disenchantment. Definition: the feeling of being let down by something you once respected. The breakdown: this is a powerful pivot word. Example: his disenchantment with the corporate world became the catalyst for his entrepreneurial journey. Number 7, sovereignty. Definition: supreme power or authority, total autonomy. The breakdown: in business English, this is the ultimate goal, owning your own schedule. Example: the goal isn't just money, it's sovereignty over your own schedule. Number 8, bioavailability. Definition: metaphorical, how much of your mental and physical energy is actually ready to be used. The breakdown: borrowing from science to talk about productivity. Example: if you don't sleep, your talent is irrelevant because your bioavailability is at 0. Number 9, subconscious bias. Definition: underlying prejudices that influence actions without us knowing. The breakdown: a term used to show high self-awareness. Example: we must audit our decisions to ensure they aren't driven by subconscious bias. Number 10, Radical transparency. Definition: being 100% honest even when it's socially awkward or risky. The breakdown: a leadership philosophy. Example: we built trust in the team by practicing radical transparency regarding our failures. 11. Heuristics. Definition: mental shortcuts or rules of thumb used for quick decision-making. Example: successful CEOs develop heuristics to filter out 90% of the noise. 12. The sunk cost fallacy. Definition: continuing a losing behavior because you've already invested time or money into it. Example: staying in that toxic partnership was a classic sunk cost fallacy. The time already spent is gone regardless.
Liam, stop there. I want to talk about how these words are delivered. Notice that the speaker doesn't hedge. He doesn't say, I think it's like. He says, the dichotomy is. This is what we call declarative syntax.
Exactly, Emma. Let's look at the 8 remaining vocabulary words. These are even more high agency. 13. Anti-fragility. Definition: a system that actually gets stronger when things go wrong, coined by Nassim Taleb. Example: a resilient person survives a storm. An anti-fragile person uses the storm to build a better house. 14. Utility function. Definition: what someone actually optimizes for, e.g., status, peace, or money. Example: her utility function isn't money, it's the ability to work from anywhere in the world. 15. Flow state. Definition: the zone where the ego vanishes and work feels effortless. Example: he designed his office specifically to trigger a deep flow state every morning. 16. Bottlenecking. Definition: the one specific point that holds back an entire process. Example: we have a great product, but our slow legal team is bottlenecking the whole launch. 17. Dichotomy. Definition: a sharp division between two things. Example: there is a strange dichotomy between his public success and his private struggles. 18. Pragmatism. Definition: approaching problems based on what works in reality, not on theory. Example: ideology is fine for books, but business requires cold, hard pragmatism. 19. Neuroplasticity. Definition: the brain's ability to rewire itself. Example: growth is possible at any age thanks to the brain's neuroplasticity. 20. Equanimity. Definition: calmness and composure, especially in a high-pressure situation. Example: the best leaders maintain equanimity while everyone else is panicking. Part 2. The grammar of authority, the mastery section.
Now, for our listeners who want to sound advanced, Liam, let's talk about nominalization. This is the secret weapon of the guest in this video.
Yes, instead of saying, I am stressed because I have too much to do, the guest says, the accumulation of trivial tasks creates a deficit in my creative bandwidth.
Look at what happened there. He turned doing tasks into accumulation, a noun, and being tired into deficit, a noun. By using nouns, you sound like a researcher of your own life. You take the emotion out and put the logic in.
Another high-level trick used throughout the conversation is the conditionals with should or were. Instead of, if you want to win, you have to work, the guest uses, should one desire to reach the peak, one must accept the sacrifice.
That should one desire is incredibly elegant. It's formal, it's precise, and it sounds inevitable. It's not a suggestion, it's a universal law.
Part 3. Why this works for motivation. To conclude this deep dive, the reason this interview is so motivating isn't just the advice, it's the clarity of the English. When you have the words to name your bottleneck or your sunk cost fallacy, you gain power over them.
Exactly. Language is the cage or the key. If your language is vague, your results will be vague. If your language is precise, your life becomes optimized.
Go back and watch the video again. Don't just listen to the stories. Listen for the anti-fragility. Listen for the asymmetric risks.
And remember, mastering English at this level isn't about being fancy. It's about being effective.
Now, Emma, let's pivot to the heart of the discussion, the Uber era. This isn't just about working hard. Everyone says they work hard. We are looking at the intensity of the verbs used to describe the Uber culture.
Exactly. When you listen to the guest describe those early years, he doesn't use soft verbs. He doesn't say we tried or we managed. He uses high-velocity verbs. He talks about crushing goals, deploying capital, and navigating chaos.
Let's look at a specific grammatical structure he uses when discussing the hard work requirement, parallelism.
At Uber, it wasn't about the hours you sat at the desk. It was about the problems you solved, the friction you removed, and the speed at which you iterated.
From a researcher's perspective, this parallelism, the repetition of the noun you verb, creates a sense of relentless momentum. It makes the hard work sound like a well-oiled machine. For those of you learning advanced English, this is how you describe a complex process to make it sound inevitable and powerful.
And notice the vocabulary he uses to describe the Uber environment. He uses the word friction constantly. In a business context, friction is the enemy of scale.
Let's break down how he uses operational excellence and non-negotiables. Non-negotiables, these are the standards that cannot be lowered no matter how tired the team is. The syntax of hard work. The guest uses imperative structures even when he's just telling a story. He says, you have to show up. You have to be the first one there.
Emma, I want to highlight a very specific phrase he used, the burden of responsibility. Most people see work as a task. At Uber, he describes it as a burden you choose to carry.
That's a great linguistic catch, Emma. By using the word burden, he upgrades the hard work from a job to a mission. In English, a job is something you do for money. A burden is something a leader carries for a purpose.
He also talks about iterative growth. Instead of saying we got better, he says we iterated. To iterate, to perform a process repeatedly in order to reach a goal. The business lesson. Hard work at Uber wasn't blind work. It was iterative. You work hard, you fail, you analyze the data, and you iterate faster than the competition.
For our listeners, notice the use of compound adjectives here. He speaks about a data-driven approach and a customer-centric model. This is how you compress a lot of information into a single phrase. It shows that the hard work was directed by intelligence, not just effort.
There's a moment where he discusses the sacrifice. He uses the third conditional to reflect on the cost of Uber's success. If we hadn't pushed that hard, the company would have folded in 6 months.
That third conditional, if plus past perfect, is the grammar of critical reflection. It shows that the hard work wasn't an option. It was a survival mechanism.
So, the lesson from the Uber segment is clear. Hard work is the engine, but precision language is the steering wheel. If you can't define the friction, you can't work hard enough to remove it.
Exactly. When you describe your work, stop using small words. Don't just fix things, eliminate friction. Don't just try again, iterate the process. Segment 4. The psychology of the high performer, the internal battle. Let's transition from the mechanics of Uber to the internal architecture of the leader. Throughout the conversation, there is a recurring focus on psychological safety, or rather the strategic lack of it in high-growth environments.
It's a fascinating dichotomy, Liam. On one hand, the guest talks about the weight of expectations. Linguistically, notice how he doesn't say, people expect a lot from me. He turns the expectation into a physical object, a weight. This is reification, a process where abstract concepts are treated as physical things.
And how do you handle that weight? The guest uses the term cognitive reframing. Cognitive reframing, the ability to change the meaning of an event to change its emotional impact. The lesson: when a competitor launches a better product, a low agency person sees a threat. A high agency person, using the guest's syntax, sees a market validation.
Exactly. He uses the phrase internal locus of control. For our advanced listeners, this is a psychological term that describes the belief that you are responsible for your success, not luck or the government.
He says, the outcome is a derivative of my effort. Look at that word, derivative. He's borrowing from calculus to explain life. He isn't just working, he's calculating his impact.
Segment 5. Navigating the competitive landscape, the external war.
Now, let's talk about the war room language. When discussing the competitive landscape, the guest's vocabulary becomes almost military-industrial.
Yes, the terminology shifts towards moats and defensibility. Economic moat is a distinct advantage that protects a company from its competitors. Analysis: you don't just have a good business, you have a moat. It creates a visual image of a castle under attack.
Market saturation, when a market no longer generates new demand. First mover advantage, the benefit gained by the first significant occupant of a market segment. Zero-sum game, a situation where one person's gain is exactly equal to another's loss.
The guest says, "We weren't playing a zero-sum game, we were expanding the pie." This is a brilliant idiomatic meta-commentary. He's telling the listener that the competitive landscape isn't about fighting over scraps, it's about category creation.
And to survive that landscape, he introduces the concept of high-velocity decision-making. He doesn't say, we decide fast, he says high velocity.
Why the difference, Liam?
Fast is just speed. Velocity is speed with direction. In advanced English, using physics terms to describe business adds a layer of scientific credibility.
There's a phrase he uses regarding competitors: incumbent inertia. Incumbent, the current leading company in the market; inertia, the tendency to do nothing or to remain unchanged. The business lesson: large companies, incumbents, are slow to move. Hard work at a startup like Uber is effective because you are fighting inertia with agility.
Segment 6. Synthesizing the lesson. How to speak like a CEO.
As we wrap up this deep dive into the Uber era and the psychology of leadership, let's look at the closure syntax.
At the end of the interview, the guest uses short, punchy sentences. After 90 minutes of complex explanation, he simplifies. This is called the rule of 3.
Be bold, be disciplined, be obsessed.
Linguistically, this is an imperative truncation. By cutting out all the fluff, he leaves the listener with an actionable command.
For those of you discovering English, notice the shift from the subjunctive, if I were, back to the imperative, be. This is how you transition from an analyst to a leader. You analyze with complexity, but you lead with simplicity.
That is the secret of this entire conversation. The hard work at Uber was complex in its execution, but simple in its goal: total market dominance.
If you want to apply this to your English, spend 80% of your time being precise and 20% of your time being unapologetically direct.
We've decoded the grammar, the vocabulary, and the mindset. Now, the only thing left is the execution. Segment 6. The War Room Simulation. The Boardroom Pitch. Now, for our listeners who want to see these 20 words in action, we are going to simulate a crisis meeting at a company like Uber during its hyper-growth phase. Emma, you are the CEO facing a massive competitor. I am the skeptical board member.
Let's do it. Listen for the subjunctive mood, the asymmetric risk framing, and the nominalization.
Emma, the competition is burning cash to steal our drivers. We are losing market share in London. Why shouldn't we just cut our prices and pray?
Liam, if we were to simply cut prices, we would be falling into a sunk cost fallacy. We've invested millions in our tech stack. We shouldn't devalue it now. Instead, we need to identify the bottleneck in our driver onboarding.
But the market is aggressive. They are faster.
They have speed, but they lack anti-fragility. Their business model is fragile under stress. Our advantage is our high-velocity decision-making. While they are stuck in incumbent inertia, we will iterate our loyalty program. This is an asymmetric risk. The cost of a pilot program is low, but the upside is total sovereignty over the London market.
And what about the team? They are exhausted.
I recognize the cognitive load is high, but we must maintain equanimity. I've told the leads that radical transparency is our only path. We aren't just working hard, we are seeking operational excellence. We will remove every ounce of friction until our utility function is perfectly aligned with the driver's needs.
Simulation ends. Segment 7. The linguistic drill. Deep dive examples. That was intense, Emma. Notice how she didn't say, "I think we should try." She used declarative statements. Now, let's provide a drill for our listeners. We will take 5 of our 20 words and give you a high-performance sentence for each. 1. Anti-fragility. The master sentence. Our supply chain isn't just resilient, it possesses anti-fragility because every disruption forces us to find a more efficient route. The lesson. Use this when a problem actually makes your business better. 2. Cognitive dissonance. The master sentence. The team is experiencing cognitive dissonance because our mission statement says quality, but our current output reflects quantity. The lesson. Use this to point out hypocrisy without being aggressive. 3. Asymmetric risk. The master sentence. Applying for this global role is an asymmetric risk. The no costs nothing, but the yes changes my entire career trajectory. The lesson. Use this to justify a bold move. 4. To extrapolate. The master sentence. If we extrapolate these churn rates, we can see that our current growth is unsustainable without a paradigm shift in customer service. The lesson. Use this to sound like a data-driven visionary. 5. Equanimity. The master sentence. In the middle of the PR crisis, the founder's equanimity prevented a mass exodus of panicked investors. The lesson. Use this to praise someone's emotional intelligence. Segment 8. The conclusion. Your 24-hour challenge.
We've covered a lot today. We went from the subjunctive mood of the diary of a CEO guest to the hard work ethic of the Uber era.
Remember, the goal of this podcast isn't to help you pass a test. It's to help you occupy a room. When you use words like heuristics or paradigm shift, you are signaling that you operate at a higher level of abstraction.
Here is your challenge for the next 24 hours. Pick 3 of the 20 words we discussed. Find a way to use them in a professional email or a conversation.
And pay attention to your verb tense. Stop saying, "I will try." Start saying, "I am iterating." Shift from the passive to the high-agency active voice.
Language is the software of the mind. If you want a better life, upgrade your code.
Communication is a zero-sum game if you don't have the right tools. Today, you gained 20.
Apply these insights with equanimity and radical transparency. True fluency isn't about speed, it's about the precision of thought.
Check out our show notes for the full breakdown of today's lexicon. This has been English Between the Lines.
The conversation doesn't end here. It begins when you speak. We'll see you next time.